Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Rainbow Six Siege video. In this video we are going to be discussing assault rifles, their damage models, fire rate, damage per second, and most importantly, which assault rifle will reign supreme over all the other ones. So, this video is basically going to be one large comparison for every assault rifle currently in Rainbow Six Siege. And when I say currently, I mean right after the Velvet Shell DLC, just to kind of mark this in time. And we will do this by comparing them all to each other in 4 categories: damage, damage drop-off, fire rate, and damage per second. In each category, I will group all the assault rifles into 3 tiers. Tier 3 is the lowest tier, Tier 2 is the middle tier, and Tier 1 is the best and top tier. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know you all like this type of content and it really helps out the channel. With that out of the way, let's begin. First up, we're going to be taking a look at damage. In these statistics, we are going to be looking at 2 types of damage: body shot damage and leg shot damage. Also, the numbers are against an operator with 1 armor, and I'll elaborate. You'll see. So Tier 3 is comprised of the C8 SFW for Buck, the G36C for Ash, and the F2 for Twitch. So to explain this further, the number on the left is the body shot damage, and the number on the right is leg shot damage. The C8 SFW and the G36C do 38 damage on a body shot and 28 damage for a leg shot. This means it will take 3 to 4 shots to kill enemies with 1 and 2 armor, and it will take 4 to 6 shots to kill enemies with 3 armor. The F2 has slightly better damage by doing 39 damage on a body shot and 29 damage on a leg shot. This means it will take the F2 3 to 4 shots to kill enemies with 1 to 2 armor, and it will take 4 to 5 shots to kill enemies with 3 armor. Now, onto Tier 2. Tier 2 is comprised of the MK17 CQB for Blackbeard, the AUG A2 for IQ, the R4C for Ash, the Type 89 for Hybiana, the Para 308 for Capiteo, the 416C Carbine for Jaeger, the AR33 for Thatcher, and the AK-12 for Fuse. Tier 2 has a lot more rifles in it. The MK17, AUG, R4C, and Type 89 will do 41 body shot damage and 30 leg shot damage. This means it will take 3 to 4 shots to take down enemies with 1 to 2 armor, and it will take 4 to 5 shots to kill enemies with 3 armor. The Para 308, 416C, and the AR33 do slightly more damage by doing 42 damage on a body shot and 31 damage on a leg shot. It will take the same amount of shots to take down enemies as the weapons I just mentioned. Now, to top off Tier 2, we have the AK-12, which does 44 body shot damage and 33 leg shot damage. It will take 3 to 4 shots to take down enemy operators with 1 or 2 armor, and it will take 3 to 5 shots to take down enemies with 3 armor. Now, let's move to the toppest tier for damage, Tier 1. Tier 1 contains the L85A2 for Sledge and Thatcher, the 556XI for Thermite, the C7E for Jackal, and the 552 Commando for IQ. Now, these weapons in Tier 1 do the highest damage of all the assault rifles, so these are the bad boys to look out for, if you know what I'm saying. The L85A2 does the lowest damage in Tier 1 with 45 body shot damage and 33 leg shot damage, meaning it will be the 3 to 4 shot kill for enemies with 1 or 2 armor, and 3 to 5 shots for those with 3 armor. Next, we have the middle of Tier 1 with the 556XI and the C7E. These will take 3 shots to take down an enemy with 1 armor, 3 to 4 shots to take down an enemy with 2 armor, and 3 to 5 shots to take down a 3 armor enemy. Now, for the assault rifle with the highest damage, the 552 Commando. It will take the same amount of shots to kill enemies with every armor type as the 556XI and the C7E that I just mentioned. So basically, the best you can hope for damage-wise for assault rifles is a 3 to 5 shot kill on any enemy. Now that we know which assault rifle can hit the hardest in optimal range, what about the range of the assault rifles? What rifle has the longest range before the damage starts to decrease? Let's find out! Before we begin, I want to first talk about what damage drop is, for those who do not know. Damage drop-off is basically the distance the weapon can fire before the weapon does less damage. For example, let's say a weapon does 10 damage up close, but its damage drop-off is 10 meters. At 10 meters it would do 10 damage, but at 15 meters it would do 5 damage. As the distance away from a target increases, the damage decreases. Basically, the higher the number, the better. The higher the number means the further a gun can shoot an enemy and do its maximum damage. So now that you know kind of a rough understanding of what damage drop-off is, let's begin with Tier 3. Tier 3 contains the AR33. Yep, Tier 3 only has 1 gun. The AR33 comes in with the lowest damage drop-off of 15 meters. This is, well, kind of bad. That means you can fire at your target from up to 15 meters before the damage slowly starts dropping off, which isn't very good. If you like to stick at a distance, like you're just a sharpshooter and you love nailing people from a long, far, just great distance, I would choose the L85A2 the next time you pick up Thatcher. Now, let's keep this train a-rolling on to Tier 2. Tier 2 is comprised of the C7E, the Type 89, the C8SFW, the 416C Carbine, the F2 and the 552 Commando, the R4C, the MK17CQB, and the AK-12. At the bottom of Tier 2, we have the C7E, Type 89, C8SFW, 416C, F2, 552 Commando, and the R4C. All these rifles can do their maximum damage up to a distance of 20 meters. Next, we have the middle of Tier 2, which is just the MK17CQB, which can do its maximum damage up to 21 meters, and at the top of Tier 2, we have the AK-12, which experiences damage drop-off after 23 meters. Now, this kind of sounds bad because of the numbers, because these are all kind of low numbers, like 20s and stuff like that. You would think it's sort of low. But trust me, it's not as bad as it sounds. I feel like most longer range encounters average out to be about 30 meters, with exception to encounters with Glaz, who is usually far away. Since most engagements in Siege are close range, this means these weapons will experience either no or very little damage drop-off. Like I said at the beginning, Tier 2 is in the middle, it's average. So in most situations, these weapons will still perform excellently. Now, let's move on to Tier 1. Tier 1 contains the AUG A2, 556XI, G36C, L85A2, and the Para 308. The bottom of Tier 1 has the AUG and the 556XI. Both of these weapons have a damage drop-off of 20 meters. The middle of Tier 1 contains the G36C and the L85A2, which both have a damage drop-off of 27 meters. And at the top of Tier 1, the assault rifle with the highest damage drop-off is the Para 308. And when I say highest, I mean it can shoot in the farthest without its damage going down, because that can seem confusing now that I look at it. Anyways, has a damage drop-off of 28 meters. These weapons will experience the least damage drop-off over distance, meaning if you want to do a weapon's maximum damage for a long range, grab one of these weapons next time you head into a siege. Now that we know the damage of our assault rifles and at what ranges that damage drops off, we should know their fire rates. So let's see what assault rifle unloads its magazine the quickest, by starting with Tier 3. Tier 3 has the MK17CQB, the Para 308, the L85A2, the 556XI, and the 552 Commando. The slowest firing assault rifle is the MK17CQB with a fire rate of 585. If you've ever used the MK17 and you compare it to some of the other assault rifles, you know that it kind of feels slow. This doesn't mean it sucks, however, but it doesn't fire the fastest. It's kind of like that fat kid on the track team that isn't always the fastest, but you know, at least he'll always finish the race. He's not just going to trip on his shoelace and fall down. He's very reliable, just kind of slow. I feel like I kind of just dissed the MK17, which is funny because it's actually one of my favorite assault rifles. Now, in the middle of Tier 3 is the Para 308 with a fire rate of 650, and the L85A2 with a fire rate of 670. These both fire slower than most of the assault rifles in Siege, but slightly faster than the MK17, which is a good thing. At the top of Tier 3 rests the 556XI and the 552 Commando, both with a fire rate of 690. Now, let's move on to Tier 2. Tier 2 consists of the AUG A2, the 416C Carbine, the AR-33, the G36C, and the C7E. At the bottom of Tier 2 is the AUG with a fire rate of 720, which isn't bad. It's slightly below average. At the middle of Tier 2, we have the 416C with a fire rate of 740, and the AR-33 with a fire rate of 749. These weapons have a fire rate that is the closest to the average without going over. If this was an episode of Price is Right, they would win. The average fire rate of the assault rifles is 763.4. And yes, I did add that up. That's why there's a decimal. So, they're pretty close. And at the top of Tier 2, we have the G36C with a fire rate of 780. And the C7E with a fire rate of 800. These weapons have an above average fire rate and are very capable of spraying your enemies down in bullets. Now, let's move to the top of the top, the toppest of the toppest, Tier 1. Tier 1 is comprised of the C8SFW, the AK-12, the Type 89, the R4C, and the F2. At the bottom of Tier 1, we have the C8 SFW with a fire rate of 837, which is pretty damn fast. And remember, this is the bottom of Tier 1, so they're only going up from here. In the middle of Tier 1, we have the AK-12 and the Type 89 with fire rates of 850. Also, we have the R4C with a slightly better fire rate of 860. Finally, we have the fastest firing assault rifle in Siege. We have the F2. The F2 has a fire rate of 980. This is incredibly high. It's fucking fast, okay? If you have never used it before, let me sum it up for you. It's like having a fire hose from the back of a fire truck in your hands. Except instead of a hose, it's a gun, and instead of water, it fires bullets. This thing fires so fast that you can spray anything in front of you and just put out so much damage. Speaking of fire rate and damage, what about the damage per second of assault rifles? Which assault rifle has the highest DPS? So, DPS stands for damage per second, which is how much damage the gun can do every second the trigger is pulled down. We can find this by multiplying the damage and the fire rate, then dividing that number by 60. Also, I'm using a similar style to when we compare damage. The body shot DPS is on the left, and the leg shot DPS is on the right. With that out of the way, let's begin Tier 3. Tier 3 contains the MK17, the Para 308, the AUG A2, the G36C, and the L85A2. The MK17 shows up again with the lowest DPS of 399 to 292. This is not a lot of damage, but if you think about it differently, it kind of is. In Siege, you're not constantly firing your weapon at enemies. You usually make precise shots or at least controlled bursts. Even if we were constantly firing at our enemies, they would just die in a few shots anyways. Above that, we have the Para 308 with a DPS of 455 to 335. In the middle of Tier 3, we have the AUG A2 with a DPS of 492 to 360. And the G36C with a DPS of 494 to 364. And at the top of Tier 3, the top of the last tier, so in a way the king of the losers, I guess, is the L85A2 with a DPS of 503 to 369, which is pretty decent. Now, let's move to Tier 2. Tier 2 is comprised of the 416C Carbine, the AR-33, the 5.56XI, the C8 SFW, and the 5.52 Commando. At the bottom of Tier 2, we have the 416C with a DPS of 518 to 387. I would also kind of like to give the 416C a bonus in this video, because it is the only assault rifle that is on the defender side. So, and it's used by Jaeger. So, this in a way kind of has a special place to me, because if I decide I want to roll with an AR in Siege while defending, I have to choose Jaeger and I have to use this. So having it be average, I think, was a really good way for Ubisoft to kind of balance it out. Because I'm sure that originally they thought to have ARs just no one have an AR at all on the defender side, but they added one in, and I think they did a pretty good job of balancing it. The bottom of Tier 2 also contains the AR-33 with a DPS of 524 to 387. In the middle of Tier 2, we have the 5.56XI with a DPS of 529 to 391, and the C8 SFW with a DPS of 530 to 391. At the top of Tier 2, we have the 5.52 Commando with a DPS of 541 to 403. Now, this kind of surprised me. I used to be one of those people who thought IQ wasn't very good at anything, and that mostly stemmed from, I've been playing Siege since like launch day, and when the game was new and fresh, before IQ was buffed, she wasn't all that great in my opinion. But looking at these stats for her weapons has really kind of changed my mind. Like, whenever I play Siege, I find that I actually kind of want to play as her more than I did before, but that could just be me. And who do you think can beat the 5.52 Commando? Well, the people in Tier 1, who we're about to find out. Now, Tier 1 is inhabited by the Type 89, the Alpha C, the C7E, the AK-12, and the F2. At the bottom of Tier 1, we have the Type 89 with a DPS of 581 to 425, and the R4C with a DPS of 588 to 430. Now, this is really high and gives you a reason to fear a good Hibana or Ash. In the middle of tier 1, we have the C7E with a DPS of 613 to 453, and the AK-12 with a DPS of 623 to 468. And finally, at the top of tier 1, the assault rifle with the highest DPS in all of Siege is the F2 with a DPS of 637 to 474. This is pretty massive. Now I'm going to reuse my analogy of the F2 being like a bullet hose, but now it's a bullet hose that deals enough damage to kill an entire team in just 1 second if, of course, all your shots hit and if the entire team's lined up, which is rarely going to happen. If you love DPS, the F2 is literally your best choice, but not by much. I feel like the AK-12 it's not the best, but it's close enough to be a great choice if you want to roll a fuse, and that's why I really love fuse players that decide to ditch the shield, because his weapons are actually really good. Now that we know every assault rifle's damage drop off, fire rate, and DPS, which assault rifle is the best? Well, to me there's two answers to this question, and in general I think the question is extremely hard to answer, and that's because of one variable we can never account for, factor for, and that is player skill. If a player is skilled enough with any weapon, it can be the best weapon to them. If a player like me, for example, can control the recoil and aim with the MK17 CQB, it is a great weapon, despite the fact that it has the slowest fire rate and the worst DPS. It came in last place for 2 categories, not just 1, but 2. That's like double bad. But because of my player skill, it can be an amazing weapon. Personally, I love seeing this as the answer. I believe that Siege is a very skill-focused game. Your weapon skill, your skill with the operator abilities, and your communication skill, and so on and so on. So to me, I believe the best assault rifle is the one that you are the best with. With that being said, there are some other answers we can come up with if we take another look at the categories. If you love base damage, the 5.52 Commando is the best AR for you. If you like being able to do max damage from far distances, grab the Par 308. And if you love DPS or having the fastest fire rate, take the F2 into your match. With that being said, if we look back at these stats, you can really decide which one you would want to use. Like, for example, I know a lot of people that love damage. I let them into this video, like my friends, and they're like, wow, I didn't realize the Commando had the best damage, and they started using it and they loved it because they really never played IQ. So once they discovered this information, once I told them, it kind of changed their opinion on some of the operators and some of the weapons. And that's what I was kind of seeking to do with this video, is to just make you think. Because in lots of first-person shooters, certain weapons are perceived just to be bad. Like, oh man, this weapon's unusable, it's awful. But that's not always the case, is it? Like, a lot of people perceive the MK17, for example, which I kind of bashed, to be a bad weapon because it's slow and it just doesn't do a lot of damage, like DPS-wise. But in the right hands, it can be great. Like, in Siege, it only takes 1 headshot to kill your enemy. So, if you're good enough at the game, none of these stats even matter. But for those who just love to pour over the analytics, pour over the stats, pour over every little factor of their first-person shooter so they can be the best, then just look at all this information. Rewatch this video a few times, rewatch a section, and just look at it and realize what you want to do. Like I said, if you want to snipe people with an assault rifle, the Par 308 does the most damage from longer distances. So if you can't nail that headshot from a far away, at least you're still doing a lot of damage. If you love just spraying down enemies through walls, through floors, through anything, the F2 is probably your best bet because it can empty its mag in an unbelievably fast time. Now, like I said, there are 2 answers for which AR is the best in Siege. The one you have the most skilled with, or which one has the highest stat that you prefer. In the end, I'm going to leave the decision up to you. I'm not going to make this choice for you. I just want to know, which one do you agree with? Which one do you think is the correct answer? The one you have the most skill with, or the one that has the highest stat of a particular category? Please leave your comment below to let me know. Also, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This video took so long to make. I put at least about 12 hours of work into this video, which is really more than I've put into any other video. So I really, really hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, let me know if you like this type of video, because if this video is received well, I decided I was going to keep making them and try to make one for every single weapon type. Also, for those of you wondering, I did not record all this data by myself. I found this spreadsheet on Google Docs that lists it all out. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can look at it yourself. I did, however, go into Siege and ran a few tests of my own just to verify that this data was correct. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like down below to support the channel and show me you guys like this content. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel for more Rainbow Six Siege videos, content, discussion, all that stuff. I'm the Battle Moon, and I will see you in the next video.